Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is titled, The Uninvited Photo Shoot. I was enjoying a peaceful day at home when I heard voices coming from my backyard. As I walked outside to investigate, I discovered a group of high schoolers, including my entitled neighbor from across the street, setting up for a photo shoot without my permission. I tried to reason with her, but she was dismissive and kept repeating that she would rather ask for forgiveness than permission. As the situation escalated, I felt my frustration building and made a comment about having a gun to make them leave. It worked, but I knew that I couldn't rely on threats to keep my property safe. So, I talked to my wife, and we agreed that we needed to make sure our neighbor knew she was not welcome to trespass on our yard again. A few weeks later, I noticed that our neighbor was having a party and had set up a photo booth in her backyard. I couldn't help but wonder if she had learned her lesson or was just waiting for us to leave. As the night went on, I noticed a group of people wandering around my backyard, clearly trying to sneak in for more photo opportunities. I knew I had to act fast, so I calmly walked over and asked them to leave. This time, my neighbor was apologetic and promised it wouldn't happen again. It was a small victory, but it felt good to know that I had stood up for myself and my property. As an update, I recently learned that my neighbor has moved away, and a new family has moved in. So far, they have been respectful of our property, and we haven't had any issues. It's a relief to know that I can enjoy my backyard without worrying about uninvited guests. The next story is titled, Greedy Owner Tries to Rip Off My Friend, Ends Up Paying Him Double. My first job out of college was for a local TV station. The owner was, and still is, the worst human being I've ever met. This guy has money, but he will cheat and lie, anything to get out of paying his bills. When I started working there, the owner had just signed a contract with DirecTV to become part of their broadcast package. Since they were at the time purely a local TV station, this meant that we had about 2 months to upgrade our system so that we can start broadcasting to DirecTV customers in the entire Bay Area. Every day that we failed to do this past the deadline means that the owner would suffer a penalty per the contract. Not knowing about how any of this works, the owner hired a friend of mine to come in as a freelance consultant. My friend told him that for about $15,000 USD he can get a system that will automate the entire process, which of course this guy didn't want to pay. He tasked my friend with finding a cheaper way, around half, and to pay for all the hardware up front and get reimbursed later. Knowing what a piece of shit this guy is, I warned my friend not to front the money because he wouldn't get paid back. The guy just smiled and said, "Watch me." So, he made it work, we went live on schedule and the owner was happy. Then my friend went in and presented the guy with the bill. Immediately the usual excuses start. "Oh, I'm a little short this month, can I pay you later?" Etc. etc. Then my friend pulls out the trump card. Not only did my friend threaten to take all the equipment back and takes the station off the air, but he also reveals that in order to get the uplink working for cheap, someone had to come in every day and code the broadcast manually. It's not a terribly complicated procedure, takes less than 5 minutes, but of course no one else at the station knows how to do it but him. So, either the owner can pay him what he's owed, plus a $2,000 per month consulting fee, or the station goes dark and he starts paying the penalty to DirecTV. The a-hole paid fast. So instead of $15,000, he ended up shelling out more than double that amount as my friend lapped up his $2,000 per month fee for close to a year before he felt bad and finally teach someone there how to do it. Moral of the story. Only thinking about short-term gain will always cost you more in the long run. The next story is titled, My Older Sister Threatened to Call the Cops on Me, because I brought her kids home. Hello everybody, I've made several posts about my older sister Candy before, but I'm back with another one, which is honestly hysterical. I was actually on the phone with my ex-brother-in-law cracking up about it on my way home. So, basically, my sister called my mom the other day and tried to convince my mom to pick the kids up and bring them to my house for my great-grandmother to watch without okaying it with my great-grandmother, GGM, first. My mom obviously refused because she was at work, and I had the car my GGM, and I share since I use the car during the week for work. So, on Saturday, my great-grandmother went to pick up the kids as usual so they could spend the night with us and go to church today. After church, Nana will keep the kids for a few more hours before taking them home. However, when she took the kids home, Candy blatantly refused to take them and made many excuses why she wouldn't take them. So, I had just woken up from a nap because I'm sick, and I was confused to see my GGM coming back inside with the kids with her. Now to clarify, it's spring break for the kids, so naturally, my sister didn't want to deal with them. My GGM was really upset because she has things she has to do during the week that she can't take the kids to, and she was so angry she was almost in tears. So, I decided to take it upon myself to let the kids chill for a bit and play while I had a cup of hot tea to soothe my throat and get something to eat before I loaded them back up in the car and drove them home. The two older kids were really upset with their mom because they were excited to see her, and she basically rejected them, especially my oldest nephew. He got really upset when we were loading him up in the car. Luckily, we managed to keep him calm with kids YouTube, and Nana went back inside so I could take the kids home. When I got to my sister's house, she opened the door and got all pissy when I told her I brought the kids home. I calmly explained that I am sick, and our heat went out, which it actually did. My GGM is relying on a tiny space heater, and I'm using my heated blanket. This is the third time our heat has gone out, so our house is pretty cold. My sister told me she was not taking the kids and demanded I take them back to my house. She was telling me about all the stuff she had to do during the week, and that she had talked to Nana, my GGM, about keeping the kids for this week. That was a blatant lie. I kept my voice low and tried not to argue with her so I wouldn't scare the kids, as they were still in the car, but the driver's side door was open. My sister told me I was scaring the kids. Meanwhile, I was talking low and non-aggressively, and she was standing on the doorstep and was leaned over and yelling in my face. I just calmly told her, "Candy, either you take your kids, or I call the cops and report you for abandonment. Those are your only two options. Taking them back to my house is not an option." Basically, gentle parenting my older sister. She then threatened to call the cops on me, claiming I forcibly took them out of our GGM's care to bring them back to her. I did not. Nana happily agreed to let me take the kids home because her back and leg have really been bothering her, and she's exhausted. I told her the cops would not take her seriously if she called them for that, but I was ready to handle it if it came to that. Then she started the shaking and fake crying, with no tears LMAO, telling me she was too overwhelmed, she's dealing with DHS, and she has a mediation hearing to find out if she gets to keep the kids or not. I simply told her that wasn't my problem, and I gave her the only options I had. Oh, she also accused me of calling DHS on her the moment she opened the door and saw me standing there. I had no idea DHS had been called on her again and told her that. She actually seemed to believe me for once and placed the blame on my ex-Bill. She then told me to give her a minute and went inside and closed the door, so I just went to the car and sat in the driver's seat to wait on her. The two older kids were freaked out, and the baby was calling out for his mom. After 10 minutes, she came outside and was on the phone, then went back inside for 5 more minutes. I honestly thought she was calling the cops on me. My niece was scared. I was thinking I'd have to call the cops on her, because what kind of mother refuses to take her own children? Especially when she knows that the house she wanted her kids to stay in for a week or longer had no heat. Eventually, she finally came back out and started to unbuckle the kids. My oldest nephew refused to get out of the car for his mom, so I had to pick him up and take him out of the car and draped his coat over him. My older sister literally tried to physically intimidate me by standing over me and yelling in my face. Then she threatened to call the cops on me, and then she started fake crying and trying to guilt trip me before she realized I wasn't giving in. Now, I hate confrontation, so I was having a silent panic attack with my heart pounding and hands shaking, but I refused to play into her act and kept myself calm, specifically because I didn't want to scare the kids. I had to soothe and comfort the two older kids while we were waiting on their mom when she went back into the house because my niece was about to cry thinking I was going to go to jail. Candy's entitlement just baffles me, and the fact that she tried to lie to my face saying that she and Nana had talked all weekend about her keeping the kids is absolutely ridiculous. She just didn't want to keep her kids over spring break. Luckily, Nana and I have improved our relationship, and she wasn't upset with me at all for taking the kids home. She's old, tired, and in a lot of pain right now, so she didn't have the energy to take care of the kids. I did end up calling my ex Bill when I was driving home and explained the situation to him so he could tell his lawyer and get it put in the file he has against my sister. My sister also refused to let me see what the inside of her house looked like. She is missing the entire top row of her teeth, and she looks nearly 50 years old at the ripe old age of 25. I will probably make a DHS report to explain everything that happened this evening, and if she does try to accuse me of doing that, I'll own up to it. There was also an unfamiliar car parked in front of her house, and there was somebody inside the house. Her boyfriend doesn't have a car because his license got revoked due to several duos, and the last one resulted in him losing his car because he totaled it while driving drunk. The next story is titled, "My ex demanded me for child support for a kid that is not mine. My mother and sister are on their side." Some years ago, I dated a girl. The relationship was bad. She was very controlling and abusive. It ended up really bad and we broke up. I kept going on with my life, and after some years I got a decent job, enough to solve all my needs, have a comfortable life and make some savings. The thing is, a couple months after getting my job, my ex contacted me. She first asked me to talk. I believed that she may want to reconnect or something, but she showed up with a 5-year-old child, claiming he was my son and demanding for child support. I didn't believe her, but the child age matched the time since we cutted contact. I got advice from a lawyer, a friend of mine, to try to solve this out of the court. I offered to take responsibility, pay all the costs and being an active part of the kid's life, only after making a DNA test. Everyone was okay with this except for my ex. She acted offended and demanded to just give her the money she deserved. She used all the excuses she could, even contacted my family to told them I was trying to avoid taking responsibility of her child. When she run out of excuses, and the DNA test was finally made, surprise. I'm not the father. She was so mad with the result, and cried about the money, saying it was unfair and she deserved it. But she didn't accomplish anything. Moving on to the last week, there was a little party on my parents' house. My brother, a friend and I were talking, and my brother started to joke about the situation with my ex. My friend and I started to joke about it too. Some of our comments were a little dark and bad, but we were far away from the rest of the people. Literally we were on the opposite side of the house, and nobody else could hear us, at least that was what we thought. We were laughing like crazies when my sister appeared very angry and pushed me against the wall. She spied us and heard our conversation, and she was really mad. She started to yell at us about how horrible people we were for being mocking of a poor woman. Few hours later, when the party ended, she asked me to go to the kitchen with our parents, and she started to say how awful I was for the previous situation. Apparently, my ex had been in contact with her, and she believed her version, and that was her way to have an intervention. My brother and I were like, "Are you serious?" When she started to say how I forced my ex into be a single mother, and that I have the moral obligation to help her. My dad only said that we maybe were being too cruel making jokes of her, but that I wasn't responsible for that kid. My mom then surprised all of us when she said, "Even if the kid is not yours, you're making more than enough money to support that child, you should have helped her." Since then, I had been receiving texts. My dad and my brother are on my side, saying I'm not responsible for her, but my sister is telling me how horrible I am for being ruining their lives. My mom only said, "It's your decision and I respect it. I'm just very disappointed that you ended up being so selfish." I'm aware that she doesn't deserve my money and I'm not planning to give her any, but the constant harassment of my sister trying to guilt me, it's just exhausting. The last story is titled, "Nasty Breakup, False CPS Call and a Cross-Country Move." I, 27, and my husband, 35, have been married for almost a year, but we've been together for nearly 6 years. During the first 4 years of our relationship, he and I were in a poly-triad with another woman who I'll call Sarah, 34. A poly-triad is 3 people who are all dating each other, in case anyone wasn't sure. They were together first and had been for about 10 years before I came into the picture. I have a child from a previous relationship who I have sole custody of. And in December 2021, I found out I was pregnant with my second child. This pregnancy took me completely by surprise as I was on the pill. When I told my husband, it took him a while to come to terms with it. But eventually he accepted it and chose to stand by my side and be active in the baby's life. When I told Sarah, however, things took a bad turn. At first, she demanded I have an abortion. She stated it wasn't fair for me to keep my baby when she chose to abort one. She'd been pregnant with about a year after I came into the relationship. Then she started demanding that he get her pregnant as well. Within 3 months, Sarah's mental health started to decline further and further. She had always struggled with depression and being bipolar, and I had called 911 for her several times during our relationship for Sarah trying to unalive herself. It got to the point where her declining mental health was starting to negatively impact me, so I told her that I wanted to take a break from being in a relationship with her. I told her that I didn't know when I'd be ready to be with her again, but that I needed time. The best thing she could have given me was time. After just 1 week, Sarah cornered me while I was taking a bath and kept asking why we couldn't get back together. Why I felt I needed a break, why I had to keep the baby. Then it turned into her berating me and saying that I was horrible to everyone in my life. I got up and ran to my room, where I then had a screaming panic attack. That night, Sarah and my husband had a huge fight and we both broke it off with her. She went to the after another suicide attempt, and never came back except to get her thing. After 2 weeks, I got a call from a CPS caseworker. A report had been made against me, accusing me of severely abusing and neglecting my son. We scheduled a day for a home visit, and I immediately took my son to his doctor to get documentation on his physical well-being. Both his pediatrician and his therapist, he has ADHD and autism, were more than willing to speak to the caseworker on my behalf. The day before the home visit, Sarah had the electric turned off. I'd heard from a mutual friend that she wanted the caseworker to show up to a powerless home in the middle of winter. But I was able to have it turned back on that same day. The caseworker came and went, and the allegations against me were proven false. Not long after this, my husband and I kept being tormented by Sarah and her family. Slurs and curse words were written in chalk on our walkway, outdoor decorations were torn down, intimate photos were sent to people in my town who I didn't know, and lies were spread about me and my husband. The police did nothing to help, and I felt like I was living in hell. Even my son was afraid of her because as hard as I tried to hide everything from him, there were some things he did see and notice. In April of 2022, my husband and I decided moving was the best thing we could do. We were offered a place in Texas with his family. Because Texas was on the other side of the country, we decided to get married so that my family could be at my wedding. April 30th, we tied the knot, and May 15th, we started the 3-day-long drive from New York to Texas. It's been nearly a year since we left, and I haven't heard from Sarah since. I've been told that she tried to cause issues for us here in Texas, and she also has family here, but thankfully we've had nothing but peace since we came here. My daughter is now 7 months old, and we honestly couldn't be happier. We are in a much better place mentally, financially and emotionally. Thank you for listening.